Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Productivity Mastery. Great to have you here. And you're going to experience an amazing episode. Bob Molle, my guest, he just blew my mind. It's one of my favorite episodes. Like, literally, this guy is just bigger than life character. The achievements, the humbleness, the leadership lessons. You're going to love that one. I just have to tell you, we had a little glitch at the beginning of the episode. So basically, the first 15 minutes of the episode were not recorded with video. So we decided to start over. However, I really like this part, these 15 minutes that were recorded without a video, just audio. So I decided to include them at the end of the episode. This is the part where Bob is sharing his incredible story of winning a Olympic medal, a silver medal against all the odds. Enjoy this episode, and if you feel like, also listen to this 15 minutes additional content. Have fun, and see you once again very soon. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Productivity Mastery. Today, I have the honor, the privilege to be talking to Bob Molle, the author of Get Comfortable Being Uncomfortable. And what a fortunate experience we just had. For the first time ever in the podcast was recording only audio and not video. So I had to get a little bit comfortable being uncomfortable to begin this
Is that
episode.
is that because I'm not that good looking and just the video shuts out? Is that wow, you're a tough host, eh, Story?
Bob, thank you so much for your patience. Fortunately, I'm here with the right guy who's used to high pressure situations, and we just covered this incredible story. Just for the people who did not, hear this first 15 minutes of incredible storytelling, could you give us the short version of the story? Because many people won Olympic medals, but not many people want it the way you did. So can you maybe just give us the short version of
I wish I wouldn't
this
have won
incredible
it the
journey?
way I did too. So I not only the way I won it, but I wish I didn't have to go through all that stress and the ebb and flow of it. Yeah, I think the backdrop to that one, I don't know. I think there was more hype in it because I was like all over the Canadian media at the time, and not only that, but the USA too at the same time, NBC, because uh, when I was wrestling for the Olympics, I watched the opening ceremonies from a hospital bed. I trained too much, too hard. I tried to ignore my pain in my back, and unfortunately, my back. I had to have an operation because I had a disc that ruptured and a sequestered disc. It was pushing on my nerve, and so I was in surgery. So, Reader's Digest version, I watched the opening ceremonies from the hospital bed, right? And I was crying in there, and I go, "How could this be happen? I've been training how long for my life to get to the Olympics, and now I'm watching the athletes, get onto the field, right? The torch and everything, and I go, how come I'm not one of those? I'm supposed to be there, right? And I'm in a hospital bed recovering from back surgery. But the positive thing was I was around some really good people and stayed positive the whole way through. Spent 1 week in the hospital and recovering from the back surgery. Spent 1 week up at the university training, see how healthy I could get and what the rehab was doing. Obviously, get off all the painkillers. And then I spent 1 week in LA and the nice thing was, which we talked about prior, was if the wrestling wouldn't have been at the end of the Olympics, I would have never made it, right? And the super heavyweight match, which was the Olympic final, happened, day before closing ceremonies, right? So everything had to work kind of in my favor after I'd been down in the back operation to actually end up wrestling all those matches and then in the Olympic final. So it's kind of a Cinderella story, but it got overhyped because of first thing NBC would do and guess what? He was at back surgery, major back surgery 3 weeks ago. And you know what I mean? So it got overhyped on that end of it. I was the front page of the papers, front of everything, because they wanted to say, how can a guy recover from back surgery in this short of time? So, and the good part for me was they didn't think I was going to do any good. They thought, pat you on the back. Nice that you could show up, but you're not going to do anything anyways.
Was that the moment that you learned that anything is possible, no matter the circumstances, no matter the odds, you can always find a way?
Yeah, I think the one thing I think it helps you on your journey. There's so many different things. That was one of the journeys. I had the same thing in football. The year I won our first Grey Cup, I blew out my knee in a preseason game. And, you have that sense of, okay, I can make it back. And usually when you had a knee injury back then and full knee recovery, it'd take you about a year. And I was fortunate enough because I've been through this game before, it reconstructed my knee and I'd missed the whole season, all 18 games. And I got in for playoffs and won 3 playoff games, won that championship. And people had never seen people come back. But you know what? There's something to be said about hard work and things like that. I think it kind of set the stage for me that I just going to be persistent and let the cards drop where they may be. Right? And stay positive. It's amazing when you stay with a positive mental attitude about how much stuff can happen. I'm kind of proof on that one. I'm not that great an athlete, but I am persistent. Right?
So you were 21 at the time. You were
21 for
number
the
five,
Olympics. Yeah,
hmm,
I was the
number 5 in the
youngest.
world in the ranking.
I was 20 actually with fifth in the world ranking the year before in Kiev. The world championships were in Kiev when it was part of the Soviet Union back in the time because I used to train out there a couple times a year and stuff like that. Top wrestlers in the world were. Am I going to be if I don't see Bulgaria? You're going to be upset, but it would be Soviet Union, United States, But Bulgaria was a formidable country. They were rock solid as a wrestling country. Did you get your plug-in for Bulgaria?
No, everything is. By the way, everything is. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. everything is. Everything is fantastic. I wasn't born at the time, but one thing that I'm catching from you, like now you're talking about. I was 21. I went to the Olympics. You made it to the final with the surgery, like all these kind of unbeatable odds. But I'm just wondering how much was the preparation for this? Like, tell us a little bit about training and preparation and how important is preparation to be able when bad things happen for you to respond appropriately.
Well, when you say preparation, I don't think there's any, Joe Rogan would probably say it on his podcast. I think he said it how many different times. He said, no one trains like wrestlers. It's the toughest sport. They always think, you know what I mean? So we kind of had the mentality that wrestlers train harder than everybody else, whether that's true or not. But if you go on most people that have wrestled, they'll tell you it's the toughest sport they've ever been in, right? So we had the mentality all the time that we trained harder than everybody else. So it was just kind of a common theme that you went to. So I always knew how hard I trained. I trained, kind of maybe too much, 7 days a week, and 3 times a day, pretty hard, right? So it was just the mentality wrestlers have, and it was just persistence was a beautiful thing in there. But uh, it was all positive, and there's an old quote from a guy named Dan Gable, who was Olympic gold medalist for the States in 1972. No one scored a point on him, and and I remember the quote after they said asked them about no one scoring a point on you or something like that, and how big a factor was wrestling in your life? And he said, once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. And it's true. Once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. So you talked about the prep to it. Wrestlers train probably the hardest of any sport. Anybody that's wrestled knows that.
Do you ever go back and think, what would have happened if I continued with the wrestling?
No, I don't really reminisce much what coulda, shoulda, because not going to happen in my life. I'm too busy looking forward to this stuff. So I don't kind of look in the back door. It's kind of like, the old quote story. And it was, when you drive your car, where are you looking at? You know what I mean? I like to look through the windshield to see what I got next coming up the pipe. You know what I mean? I don't drive the car through the rear view mirror and look backwards and say, what if this, you end up crashing if you're looking at the rearview mirror all the time, right? I reminisce once in a while, good relationships and stuff like that. But no, I don't think about it because I always got to do things that I want to do, right? I always get excited and I always do stuff. I'm kind of a whack job that way. My wife would attest to that. She'd go, you said you're never going to quit. You're not going to retire. Yeah, I'm not. I'm just looking for new stuff, things that get me excited. You know what I mean? I'm just being candid with you. Like, guess what I enjoy? Getting an Olympic medal. I found it exciting. You know what I mean? 15,000 people booing you in the USA, Olympic final because you got them on. I found that exciting. there's so many things, winning a Grey Cup, I found it exciting. Coaching a new university wrestling team at 25, I found it exciting. I always found things that, people that want to retire, they don't do stuff that excites them. I don't think I have any time for retirement because I want to do things. I only got so much time left because I'm 62, turning 63 in the fall. You got, how much of your window left? I got so many things I want to do. I got grandkids. I got this. I want to experience all these things before I die, right? But I got a different philosophy than most people.
I went to your webpage while preparing for this podcast and I found something that resonated with me. You wrote there, the world is full of people who peaked at a young age and slowly faded into mediocrity. Bar stools around the globe are occupied by former athletes, musicians, and artists reliving their former glories. Can you talk about that?
Well, we just talked about this. You were asking me about, do I look at the back and say, what could have happened if I would have kept on wrestling? You know what I mean? And I don't really look back in that on the stuff and go to, I get actually depressed for people when, if I go out for a beer with a buddy or something like that comes into town or something like that, and we go coffee, and then someone comes up to me and recognizes me and said, you know what, I played this sport. And I wish I would have pursued that. You know, how many stories I've heard where people said, I wish I would have pushed on this harder. I wish I would have trained harder. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have, could have, you know what I mean? And that's unfortunate things. People did, you only got one life. I always think about, why would you it's better to, the old phrase goes, you know what I mean? You want to rust out or wear out, you know what I mean? And I always thought I'd, want to wear out, like I'd want to do everything and when I'm done and I'm dead. And guess what? Sit there and guess what? You got the rest of your life to sleep. Once you're dead, you don't have to worry about anything that already happened. But why not go balls out, do everything you want to do, right? And I find life like fun. I like personalities. I love the relationships. I love everything about it. I love the exercise. I love pursuing all these weird things that I thought, oh, I'll try that. And, people always worry about, yeah, what happens if you fail? I go, what's worse is that I never tried.
Which
So
came first?
go ahead.
So you're a book author, you're a consultant, you're a keynote speaker. Which came first?
I'm sorry. I don't know if your question, what do you mean, the book or the consulting, or is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
which one? Which one? Which of those kind of journeys came
Well,
first to
actually, the
you?
public speaking came first out of all my businesses because I was the first person in Canada to win an Olympic medal in over 75 years. And then not only top of that, but it was overly hyped because of the back operation prior to it. So I was across media all over Canada on front page of paper, right? During while it was happening. And so people put me into public speaking right off the bat because people would say, hey, can you talk to our school? Can you talk to this, about resiliency or that? And I didn't have any, I'm only 21. I didn't have a clue about public speaking. In fact, I remember the first time I walked out, you talk about being uncomfortable. I walked up and I'm trying to memorize something and I'm so nervous because I don't want to hold the paper and read it. So I think I spent all night. Don't think I slept trying to memorize what I was going to say. And then when I get there, I was so nervous, I forgot everything. And I was sweating so hard in front of the group. A lady took a towel. She walked up to me, and I had to wipe because I'm literally beating. I'm dripping, and I go, "Why would anybody in the world want to do public speaking? That's got to be the worst." I'm trying to memorize. I'm trying to do this and that. I'm sweating because I'm worried about if I'm going to forget it. That was my first experience in public speaking. I go, "Well, welcome to the world of get comfortable being uncomfortable, right?" You're in front of big crowds and everything, and you're out speaking. So, but the beautiful thing was, got better at, got to understand how to tell stories, and now, now they can't get me off stage.
What made the difference? Was there like a specific event or something
I
that you
sat down
shifted
with
with your mind?
um, the story. I knew I want the shift in it. There's kind of the bell curve, and then where everything kind of settled down for me when I figured out that I just listened to it, a couple other people, and all they did was tell a story, and it was your story. You don't have to worry about forgetting it because it was yours, right? And it brought, I think, authenticity to it, right? It was real. It was you. people remember the stories. Like people come back 20 years later and go, I remember the story you told me about this, this, and this. And I go, wow, you remember that from 20 years ago? I'm just like amazed. Stories are memorable because they're authentic, they're real, right? And once I started telling stories, I had so many crazy stories of people that you're kidding me. Is that what happened? I go, yeah, that's what happened. And then, okay, now we know why you're so weird now.
Your book, Get Comfortable Being Uncomfortable. How did you come up with this title, and why did you decide to write a book about that topic?
That's a great question. And not too many people know this. You're one of the few people that asked that question because there's so many people that use the phrase worldwide now, right? Like if you go on any kind of podcast, people, motivational seminars, they go get comfortable being uncomfortable. Actually, I own the domains to that .com, .ca, .that. I own the trademark to it too. My wife told me to buy those way back in the day. We're talking early 2000s. This is a great story. I had a great mentor and lost him probably about 15, 20 years ago to cancer. And he's just a great teacher. He'd done his PhD in organizational behavior. And I hired him to teach me all stuff. I met him in a weight room. And he wanted to start his own university at the time. And it was called acronym High Order of Thinking. And it was different Eastern philosophies that I'd never heard of. And I just sat down with him a couple times for coffee and we just started. And then I used to go with him and another group. He used to put on a seminar once a month for a year. And we go, I'll meet the group for a day. And I had such a great relationship. After the course, I met with him for coffee. He'd phone me up, Bob, let's go for coffee. I love your energy. And we just had a great relationship. And I learned so much from him. It was just unbelievable. But all he took was Eastern philosophies from thousands of years ago. I didn't invent it. And he taught them to me. And I was sitting down for coffee one day, Stoya, and we're sitting at, I said, if you were going to summarize all the teaching you gave me, and I said, because I got a book and I got the book sitting right up here and I got, everything from all of his teachings and nobody in the Western world had ever seen anything like this. And he says, how would you describe it in one, couple words? And he hesitated for a second and goes, Bob, it's already described in an Eastern philosophy, and I'll convert it to English. It means get comfortable being uncomfortable. He exact said those words to me. And I said, really? He goes, yes. And in an Eastern philosophy, you will not grow unless you put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And I went like this, and I went, wow. I said, that's my next book. He goes, that's the words converted to English. And he goes, yeah, it's been there for 1,000 years. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. I bought the domains for that, the .com, and companies want to buy it because Adidas, whoever, Nike, they like that phrase. Everybody likes it, right? And that growth only happens when you create uncomfortable situations. So I actually bought the trademark for it in Canada way back in the day. So yeah, own those, and that what came natural. I did a kind of a mini book in 2008, but that's where it came from. And then I talked about all the crazy things I did, but it's all based on really one theory from an Eastern philosophy. They called the word relations. And I'd never heard the definition. I just said, relationships, I'm really good at them, and like that, and trying to brag or something like that. And he goes, no, he said the word relations. And I said, it's not relationships. And I said, what do you mean? In an Eastern philosophy, it means the ability to create new and make existing ones better. I'd never heard that definition before in my life. There's relations, the ability to create new relationships. And guess what? How we'll grow is guess what? And make those existing relationships, like my spouse. I've been with uh, my partner, wife for 40 years now, right? Next year. And always making those relationships renew, keep them exciting, keep them fun, keep them everything. And I still got buddies from college and high school that I still contact, 40 some years, 50 years later. But that's what he taught me. So that all came from him, but it came from an Eastern philosophy. It's been there for thousands of years. Very few people study it.
Do you feel like here in the West we have a little bit of a different relationship with being
Well, it's interesting you say that because everything in you hear it in a Western world in Canada, US, they'll say win-win. In an Eastern philosophy, you'd never hear that. It's always a trisector. It's always everything happens in threes. So they'll always do, you know what I mean? because a husband and wife, guess what? You also have a child. So the child's got to win. Husband's got to win. Spouse, wife has to win too. So everything happens. It's kind of like a business, Storian. You and I have to do well in this podcast to help myself. And guess what? The people listening in, we got to help them too. So everything happens in threes, right? People always work the world, and they call that dyadic tension, works against each other. It's kind of like who wins a fight? No one. They both walk away pissed off, right? And they call it the reconciler. So what's the third thing to bring you guys together? They refer to it as a reconciler, but a little different science. I study it all the time, so I quite like it. So I always move people into groups of three all the time. They don't even know what I'm doing, but it's been there for thousands of years. Very few people study it.
First time I hear that, man.
Yeah,
Super
well, this
curious.
is what I learned this like 20 some years ago. That's why I said I took the guy and he was just a different cat, right? And and he said, I think he'd be. I put on a course, Bob. And we meet once a month and for a full day, and that's all that stuff that I always have, because all these little quotes came out to me, and he'd convert them to English for me. It was, like people talk about story and people talk about change. Well, when's that person going to change? Don't they realize this? And in an Eastern philosophy, people don't change. And the quote for it is no evolution without shock. So the person won't evolve until they have shock. So unless you create shock, the person is not going to change. It's going to do the same things all of the time. Think about a person storing a guy drinks too much or something like that, and he gets away with it, drinks after work, drinks 6 beer, drives home every day, gets pulled over by the police one time, drunk driving, takes his driver's license, he loses his job. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, shock. Are you going to reduce your drinking or what? But it's kind of like the person who's goes through 6 different girlfriends or 4 different wives, and he goes, maybe I am the problem. He's got to make a change, right? So unless there's an amount of shock, right? People don't change, right?
So you've gone through a fair amount of uncomfortable situations in your life. What's the what's the mental narrative? Like you're faced with this new uncomfortable situation, maybe you didn't expect it. How do you get yourself motivated to face the challenge, the uncertainty, the uncomfortable situation?
Great question. So it doesn't matter because as a consultant, everybody that's going to call me is phoning me up. They got a problem, right? I just solve the problems differently than most people, right? I just think different. That's all. So I always break it down into little bite-sized pieces. It's kind of like everything in life. I make baby steps to it, right? Like how do you eat an elephant? So you got a major problem. How do I break it down, right? And I break it down into bite-sized pieces. And I go, okay, let's get this one done, get this one done, get this one. A lot of people get overwhelmed. What I see, anyways, is they get overwhelmed because they take the whole enchilada on there. Oh, we're going to do that. You know what I mean? And really, all it is a whole bunch of little. It's kind of like how do you eat an elephant? You're not going to eat the elephant in one sitting in a couple of minutes, right? Take one little bite, take one little bite, and it's kind of like you ever heard of the book Good to Great? It's kind of like how do you get a little bit better? And guess what? You kind of nibble at it all the time. Just keep working on it, right? And the problem, and that eventually changes over time. It just the short little nibbles affect a lot of things down the road, right?
Super interesting your background because you've been competing at the highest level as an individual, as a wrestler. Then you've been part of a team sport, and then you are working with teams, consulting teams, and being close to the business world. What are some lessons we can learn from the world of sports, team sports, that we can apply in leadership in business?
Great question. Well, I found the transfer like seamless, like in the consulting business, because everything that happened in sport really happens in a business. It's just it'll happen faster with more people watching that sport. And the biggest thing, and it goes back to that book. One of my favorites, Good to Great, right? And get the right people on the bus. And it doesn't matter, if we're putting a team together, Stoyan, we need good people. right? And a lot of people don't know how to put the right people on the bus. And that's all I basically do for a living in my consulting business. So people hire me to go into a company and they go, Bob, evaluate this talent. I look at the strengths of the people. There's a thing called Strength Finder. I got the evaluation of that and I know what their strengths are. I can do the personality test. Once I interview the people, I have a pretty good idea of it. And it's no different from a wrestling team. I remember I took over the wrestling team at University of Manitoba when I was 25. So I was playing pro football and I was the head coach of a wrestling team that wasn't doing very well. In fact, they didn't even win a match at nationals. And I remember my Olympic coach, I thought I was going to coach him up to, hey, I'll just get behind him. I'll make this team great. And my coach pulled me up and he said, you got to remember one thing. And I said, what's that? He goes, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. I go, what? What did you just say? He said, you can't make chicken salad, chicken shit. You don't have the right people. You're not going to win, Bob. You can coach them all till that. You need good people. So I knew I had to recruit nationwide and we recruited people in. First year we weren't ranked in the top 25. And then next year we came fifth in the country. Then we came third and then won the national championship. And people think, oh man, great coach. No, I'm an okay coach. But really what I did is I got good people on the team, right? And that's what happens with every company I walk into. They haven't evaluated their talent very well, right? And that's all I do for a living is turn programs. Could be a startup company, you know what I mean? And they want to analyze the talent that's coming in because you only do as good as your team is, right? Not on any football game if you want to win championships. I'm still competitive and putting teams together. I still like to win, right? So the biggest thing, I'd go right back to that book, you know, for good to great. Get the right people on the bus. 80% of the problem is still the people. They don't have the right people on the bus, and that's what the people got to evaluate right off the bat. And that's what people bring new training in. They'll bring all these other things, superficial things that they think are going to help the team. You're just wasting money and throwing it out the window. You don't have the right people. It's like a sport team. What's the difference? I still need good people, right?
So when you were a player, football player, was it the team, the players that was that the you guys won 2 cups, right?
Where I was in the
If
Grey
you go
Cup
back,
every year, the
mm,
teams were so good. We won. I was in the championship final every other year.
it's crazy, man.
My career. So it was.
But if you reflect backward, like assuming you had the right people, but again, somebody has to recruit the right people, the coach, the management. If you reflect backwards, what made you guys such a winning team?
Well, that's a great question because our offensive line, the big guys that block for the quarterback, I remember sitting down with our GM. His name was Cal Murphy at the time. And he came up and he said, Bob, we're drafting in the first round. Here's what we want to do. I was a D line. He says, we're switching the O line. I want to keep the solid group up there. We had the same O line the whole career I was there. He keeps them solid so they knew how to work well together, right? A couple injuries and a couple the odd body, but for the majority of it, there wasn't really any change. It was the same group of guys year in, year out. He wanted to keep that because in football, if you're not blocking for the quarterback, they say, well, he used to have an old quote, no one can throw when they're sitting on their ass, right? So if your quarterback got tackled, you can't do anything, right? So he used to keep the big blockers, us up front, the same group, and the camaraderie was fantastic. Everybody got along really well. The only unfortunate thing about that old line is most of them have all passed away. They died at young ages. So I got one starting guy from the '90 Grey Cup. Fullback's dead, running back's dead. They've all passed. That's the only sad thing because we had great relationships, right?
Yeah, good camaraderie. Do you watch soccer? Like we call it football in Europe. Do you watch soccer?
No, no.
Follow Premier? No, not often.
I,
Well,
I
look,
just, I just,
there's.
I just see how crazy they are in the stands.
I mean, look, we don't watch no North American football here much. I mean, I think it's getting more popular, but I just gonna because I'm watching. I'm a football player, European football player, right? And I watch a lot of football. I I'm a fan of Man United. 10 years of suffering now because they're really doing bad. But you keep supporting the team. But um, there's a team called Liverpool, right? You know
Yeah.
about Liverpool.
Oh,
They have a player called Salah, and he's exceptional. He's one of the best players out there. However, and Liverpool is a rival, probably that's why I'm giving you this example, right? But he's one of these players that is so exceptional, but he's not the guy for the big games. He's not a guy for the finals. You know,
Because
players like Cristiano Ronaldo, he might be injured, he might be whatever in a bad place. He will show up. He might be tired. He'll show up and he'll deliver in the big games.
yeah.
And I wonder what do you think is making a difference? How do you build this mindset of a winner that when it matters most, when the pressure is the highest, when you have a stadium with 100,000 people watching you, you perform and you give 120%?
Well, how I did it and other people do it too, maybe two different things. The good thing was, I learned so much from sports psychologists because I was, I think we talked about it. I was already in the world championships at 20, right? And so I was the highest placed Canadian by far. No one else had placed. I was fifth in the world at the time. And so they assigned me a sports psychologist. And they sit down and talk to you. And what are you thinking here? Nerves, this, that, and that. And I remember sitting down with them and they simplified everything else. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about, the big three, right? And they said, how I worked it out. And they said, Bob, what do you think when the match and you're down 2 points and there's 30 seconds left? What are you thinking? Right? Are you thinking about 15,000 people screaming at you, or this guy's going to back away from you, or that my match is screwed, the ref is screwing me? What's your brain thought? And they had really simple three things you're going to think about. And they researched a whole bunch of people that I wrestled. And they go, what? And they go back to me and they said, Bob, why is Bob so good? He said his first step is quick. He says, for a big man, first, before I know, boom. So I just attached three, for me, three animals to it, right? And to me, that was cheetah. Cheetah was quick. First step's quick. So guess what I got to do? Cheetah, boom. Soon as I get a hold of my leg, boom. And then I got to be the first step in, right? Get the leg, attack. And then second one was for me, people came back and they had interviewed people and said, "Hey, what's the problem? What else is Bob good at? Once he gets a hold of your leg, he never lets go." So mine was alligator. Once I get a hold of it, I didn't let go, right? And so for me, that was. And then the other one, I always think about, once I took them down, I turned them. So I'd wrap the legs in. I had a specific leg, right? I think Python, wrap myself around them. I'm going to turn them. So I had three animals that I said, if I just do this, this, and this, it's kind of like we talked about in threes before. I simplified every match. It didn't matter what was happening in the thing. Guess what I'm doing? I'm walking out. I'm going to do boom, boom, boom. Three animals. And that animal, guess what? First step, quick. Second step, once I get a hold of the leg, never quit. One, two, three. Once I take them down, I'm turning them. But they're animals. And I just did that. And then if anything happened, I go back to one again. One, two, and three. It's just simplicity, right? And so you never have a negative thought in your brain. You're not going, you don't have time to think of that, because it was kind of like a broken record story. All are doing it. Guess what I do in everything in life? I go, okay, what are the three things I need to do? Right? I don't have to make it complicated. Just boop, boop, boop. These are the three things I'm good at. And you and I talked, because I looked at your LinkedIn. You talked about strengths, right? And guess what I knew quite well? It's boom.
You
Right?
just focus on the stuff that's working, right? You focus on, because our brains are wired like this. Like, we are looking for the negative. We're looking for what could go wrong, because back in the day might be a bear, right?
Yeah, I know.
So
But
you have to.
it's kind of like news. It's like, how many people would watch US tariffs and Trump and news, and I don't watch the news. Like, I don't have time for it. Well, people get that. You and I were talking about before. They think of negative. They think, I said, guess what? What you put in your brain, that's what comes out at the other end of it. You're a sponge to that. So if you're going to watch news, it's doom and gloom. I got too many other things to do. I don't even watch the news. I don't even have a television. I got a television, but I don't have cable or anything like that. I'll just download a football game or something like that. That's my entertainment. You know what I mean? But
So for you now, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. You focus on the positive. You do
correct.
the things that nurture your mind. You get yourself into a good shape. But again, I just want to get there, because Bob, people are looking at us right now, especially you're this, bigger than life character, very calm, very composed, very confident, very positive guy. And I'm sure that some people listening to the podcast are probably thinking that Bob just wakes up and he's positive and smiling and everything is good, right? But I'm sure that there's moments that you wake up at the wrong side of the bed, there's situation happening, and you're a human being, you have emotions. Give us a little bit of the real picture, and is it your strategy, your reflex to immediately kind of switch? Like, how do you get yourself into a more productive place?
Loaded question. So depending on what happened, what the circumstance was, you know what I mean? Could have been sick, could have been this, just jet lag. I just came from a month in Australia. My daughter just had her third kid out there, so we go help them out there. But, is everything gonna work perfect? No, it doesn't, because I still got clients. I got my consulting business and that. I'm getting up at, probably 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, because my conference calls, I can't get everybody else in North America to move their times for me, right? So well, suck it up, buttercup, it's real world. Then I try to take the 2 boys out of her so she can manage them, right? She's got a baby to feed because the baby's only a couple days old when we got there, and I want to be able to support for her. But you can complain about, oh, I'm tired still, I'm this and that. No one cares, right? Like, you suck it up, like. And so then I got the kids at 5 o'clock in the morning, so I changed their diapers, feed them, and get them out of the house so they're not making noise. So I got the 2 boys and a dog. But you know what? If you want to complain about all this stuff like that, get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's like, man, those are the things, persistence that just, is it perfect days? And when I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, no, it's not, right? Suck it up. You know what I mean? If it was all easy, seriously, if it was all easy, everybody would do it, right? I don't, I can switch gears pretty fast, but I got a pretty good ritual. And I wake up in the morning. I kind of go through myself in my own stupid way. And I just go, I'm grateful. So I think about all the things that I'm grateful for in the morning. I go kind of wake up and I go, yeah, I'm still healthy. I'm alive because most of my teammates have died. If you went through all the heavyweights that I wrestled, I bet you 80% of them in the States are all dead, right? And I'm alive, got a beautiful wife, had 3 beautiful kids, gonna have 5 grandkids here in a second. And I always think about that. And then I go, you're the luckiest bastard in the world. Then I get up and I'm in a positive mood and start my day, right? But I don't let too much stuff affect me. I'm just being upfront with you. It just doesn't enter my brain. What you feed your brain is you become, right?
I've always
Your
been
thoughts are your mind, right? Sorry?
I've always been curious, because you said I've been going to Soviet Union and traveling the world with wrestling first, and I've always been curious, like, what happens with this jet lag, for example. Like, you go to this other country, you have to compete, but you're in a different time zone, and you're jet lagged, so you're not in your maybe optimal condition. Or as a speaker, you've been traveling quite a bit, and I'm actually curious to learn more about your work with Kiyosaki, and your work as a speaker. But often when you speak, you might be in 9 or 14 hours different time zone,
Yeah,
but people don't care. People show up and they want to hear the speaker. They want
exactly. You got to
Bob to
bring your A game, right? Yeah.
No, exactly. So how do you I mean, tell us about that. Like, I'm sure there's days that you just completely underslept, like you have some
You're
personal
looking
things.
at the clock and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You go, I would rather be sleeping right now. And you got to be on stage because I'm the energy guy too. So I'm the
You're
usually
the
one that
energy guy,
opens it.
man.
Yeah, I know. So I'm the one that opens the conference. So I got to come with my game, right? So yeah, it's not always easy. You know what I mean? People change. I find jet lag the one great biggest piece to me. I like my exercise daily. Obviously, I like my sleep. I don't do very well in the sleep category all the time, but I don't know if there's any great piece for knocking that one out of the park. You know what I mean? Because I've been to Australia twice in the last 3 months, right? And that's a 16-hour flight or something like that. But once you see your family, your kids, grandkids, you know what I mean? It's all positive. So take the positive aspect of it. If someone can take the negative aspect out of it all the time, do you like hanging around the person that's always negative? Right? Oh, it's going. Oh, you guess what happens? It's going to, doom and gloom. I just go, I just rather pick the positive things that are going to happen. Positivity, like the positive mental attitude. Just go, okay, why are you enjoying this? Take that, go the high road, right? And I think I take that in everything. It's in wrestling match. You go like that. And if you're going to worry about the ref, the things you can't control, the crowd, you got to take that out of it, right? You got to take how many things out of it and just go, okay, what do I need to do? 1, 2, and 3. First step, quick, cheetah, boom. Second thing, crocodile, alligator, boom, get a hold of it, don't let it down. Boom, once you take them down, turn them, right? It was basic fundamentals for me. I'd break it down to the basics things, and it worked quite well for me. And other people, I don't think train their brain very well. And to say that even more, because I'd seen so many great athletes, like 10 times the athlete I was, and I look at them and I go, wow, how come they're not placing? They wouldn't even get out of the country. You know what I mean? And you think about why they failed. They didn't handle pressure well, right? They'd fold up, they'd just seize up, and they thought of all the negative stuff. I just think of positive things all the time that's going to happen. And when you think of positive things, what you think, you become, right?
The more you focus on it, the more it, power it gives you.
Manifests
You give
itself,
it.
right?
So yeah, man, you've been. I wonder, and I'm sure it's probably out there somewhere, but you've been you've been part of this professional sports for many years, and part of for me as a semi-professional, not a professional in any way, but like playing football, soccer in your case, and just people see the end game, right? The match with against the other teams, but they don't see the repetitions. They don't see the discipline. They don't see you showing up when it's raining outside and nobody's watching, right? And and I know that, big part of your success. You mentioned I was probably not the most talented, you said, but you were the one that was showing up. You were the one with the right mindset. You were the one with the discipline. I wonder, how are you using this kind of mindset today as a speaker, as a consultant?
Yeah, I always think about the will to do it. How bad do you want it? Like I even remember at university, like it was kind of instilled in me at a young time. The university used to shut down at Christmas time, right? And everybody go back home and have Christmas with their family and New Year's and stuff, and you'd have that traditional two weeks off. Well, I didn't have 2 weeks off in my mind because I was transitioning from football. I just played college football, and then I'm already in the wrestling, and I knew I had to get in better shape than everybody else. That was my mindset. So I used to stay at the university in my apartment, and I used to jimmy the university door where the weight room was so I could go work out every day, right? I would still train. So I used to put a little piece of wood in the thing so the door didn't lock at the end of the night. And then I could go into the weight room all through Christmas, even though the university was shut down, so I could work out. Right. And it was just like my mentality. I said, Mom, Dad, Merry Christmas to you, but I can't go home. I got to get, on top of my training game, and I think people were enjoying Christmas and New Year's and celebrating. I thought I was out training them. I said, every time you go suck another beer back, I'm going to outwork you. Right? And that was my mentality. I think a lot of people, I'm just being candid with you, are lazy. You know what I mean? They have a choice every day. You and I have a choice every day. I have a choice to go work out or not work out. I have a choice to have I had a great mentor, and that one we talked about that I lost my mentor, he told me about choices. Everything's a choice, right? Whether I get up in the morning, whether I have a shitty attitude, or a positive attitude, what I put in my mouth, what I don't put in my mouth, whether I jump on my bike and go for a workout every day, which I do. I have a choice, right? I have a choice to read a book. I have a choice, all those things are choices, and he said, Bob, choose well. And that stuck with me, right? I have a choice all the time. And the end result of that, that's my choice, right? I have a choice not to watch the news and get the negative stuff out of it, right? And train my brain, right? Everybody's got a choice. And so I kind of simplify it to most people. I said, you choose that, right? If you want to go for a workout in the morning, because I got a group of crazy people. If I fly into Winnipeg, they already know that if I came into town, they can pick me up at 6 in the morning because we're going for a workout, because I'll work out with them every morning, right? They already know it's part of my makeup, right? And we'll still work out when we're 60 years old. And we did it 40 years ago. We're still going to do it. You know what I mean? That's the same group of people. We used to bike at 5 o'clock in the morning. We used to this, and we're training for Ironman. I did an Ironman in '97. Then it's just the mentality that you got, and I love surrounding myself with other positive people. Right? You're a product of your environment, still, right? You
You've been
see it
you've been a
any? You
speaker.
see it any different?
Hmm.
You see it any different?
Than what you described.
Yeah.
No, I think it's the same, man. And I think the more you make some of those choices, the easier it gets. All right. If you make the choice, I'm a little tired, but I'll go to the gym because that's the right thing to do. Tomorrow is going to be a little easier. So the more you make more of the right choices, and we usually know what's the right long-term choice for us, we're just not always doing it. But I think it's the same. Like if you can immerse yourself with positive people in your life, like the environment. If you don't want to eat chocolate and sweets, don't buy chocolate and sweets. Don't have it in your home, right? If you have fruits and vegetables, you're more likely. Like make it easy and simple. That's what one of the key things I'm getting out of this conversation is the simplicity piece. How can I make it easy so I can follow through?
It is. It's kind of like I'm 20 minutes to bike to my big pool and gym every morning. And it's simplicity, right? I get on a bike every time, right? I already got my warm up done by the time I get there because I'm on my bike. And you know how many people drive there? And I'm going, you're going there to exercise? Why wouldn't you bike? And people are worried about, well, there's not enough parking here. And I'm, why are you right? I think different than most people, right? I went. I'm probably I'm 60 some years old, and you got everybody. I'd say 98% of the people that drive there. I'm just going. You're going there to exercise, and then you jump on a bike once you're there, or something like that. My warm up's already done. I'm way ahead of the game by the time I get there. And plus, I've already sunk a few things in my subconscious brain, some problems I need to solve. And then I find when I get fresh air, exercise, and everything, the ideas just come to me. Problem solve, right? So, you can do so many things with that, but you got to take advantage of all these things. It's back to what we talked about, Storm. It's a choice, right?
You did your first speech when you were 21. You said when the Olympic medal happened.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if
That means
I
this,
don't know if they would classify it as a speech. I think it was a sweatshop, is what it was. I don't
right?
think anybody would walk away from that and go, "Did he do a speech?" I don't think so.
Well, you have many years in the industry now. When was it actually you started doing it professionally? You said Kiyosaki approached you.
Well, I'd done it for a couple other things, and people kept, they'd call me up or whatever, and hey, can you come in and speak at XYZ or something like that? But I was never doing it. And then Robert Kiyosaki's group, he had come up and he had heard about me and asked me if I'd be the energy guy and start. They had a 2-day session in Edmonton, Canada. And he had reached out and he says, "Hey, I really like some of your stuff." And I said, "I heard good things about you. And I'd like to try you out at our 2-day session. You'll be the warm up or the starter, like energy guy at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m., whatever the conference started." And that's how I wrote the book, actually, too. It's an embarrassing thing, but that's how I got to write the book. Was the night before you kind of have a wine and cheese. You meet all the other speakers, right? Friday night, and got speakers from all over the place. And his event, kind of like in Kiyosaki, they got him kind of like every hour. You know what I mean? On the hour for 2 days. So you meet all the speakers and that. I'm the energy guy. Walk up, tell a couple stories. Goes extremely well. And as I'm walking off stage, one of the guys I'd met at the wine and cheese the night before, just to meet all the speakers, he walked up and I didn't even understand what he was saying. He kind of goes, "Hey, Bob, really enjoyed your speech." I go, "Hey, thanks, Jim." And he goes, "Too bad you're a dumbass." I said, "Excuse me?" And he goes, "Too bad you're a dumbass." I said, "What?" I said, I didn't know if he was being sarcastic or what. I go, "What do you mean dumbass?" And he goes, "When you walked off stage, there was over 300 people raced to the back of the room to buy your book. You didn't have a book. You're a dumbass." And then exact words I said to him, I said, what would I write a book on? And the exact words he told me, he said, "Bob, you just told 3 great stories. I have a feeling you got about 10. You could put a book together." That's what happened. And that's when I thought about putting the book together. And he said, "Put it together, 10 stories, you got a book." And that's how it started. Like, I know I'm not a good writer. You know what I mean? Get comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
So writing wasn't your natural kind of like, oh, it's so easy for me to write.
No, 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 not at all. No, I wouldn't put myself. I'd have to hand it to my lovely wife and say, "Hey, edit, please." Or no, so
What
foreign to
was
me.
what was the reason you you made an updated version. A couple of months ago,
Say it
you
again.
published the updated. You have a new version, updated version of the book. What was the reason you decided to republish the book?
Well, because a couple people had always said, when's Get Comfortable Being Uncomfortable, number two coming out, right? And then the guy kind of looked at book publisher and he goes, Bob, you could add so much more to this because in the last, you know, 10, 15 years, your life's changed. This has changed. Let's update everything. Like, let's extend these stories. Here's what a listener would like to live. You know what I mean?
So what is the future looking out for? Like, what's the vision now? Are you gonna publish more books? You want to do more speaking? You want to what are you excited about?
I think there's a couple things I'm excited about. The book just came out. I enjoy the relationship, so it's not so much the end result. I enjoy the process, right? So I meet so many people, and I enjoy the relationship, getting to understand people, what they're about, what drives them, stuff like that. So go to a function. I enjoy the relationships. You know what I mean? It's the consulting part. I enjoy working with the people and saying what they can come. I get my kicks in my old age. You can't do much anymore, but get out and exercise. But I get my kicks vicariously kind of through other people. I'm watching them learn, right? And when the penny drops and they get more excited about what they're doing, they're more successful because, it's kind of, there's an old German quote, too soon old, too old smart. Learn from the people who've experienced it, right? And there's a lot of young entrepreneurs and stuff like that. They don't manage relationships very well, and they can't figure out why they can't go from here to here. And it's a lot of it's really centered around the relationships. People don't know how to do that. They're too busy on their phone. They're not building relationships with people, right?
What are some of the common challenges that you see executives, leaders of corporations are struggling with today?
Biggest struggle, and you and I
Biggest
talk.
struggles in
Oh yeah, for sure. 80% of it, there's friction going on in the company. 100%. They're not managing the relationship, so they might be pissed off at someone down the corridor with legal. They might be upset with finance. They might be upset with sales. Might be upset with that. And they don't have good relationships, right? And they don't get along together. And guess what happens? And we talked about it earlier. Like, you know, who
so
wins the
so
fight?
so what's your approach? I'm super curious, man. Like you get in there, you have this incredible energy, tool set, mindset, like all the stuff, incredible stories to inspire people. But what is your approach? Like, let's say a new client is bringing you on board because the team is not fully functional. There's something going on. How do you approach a new client?
I don't know if I'm totally different than most people, but I do merchant acquisitions too when people are that. And when they're struggling, it's funny you say that, but I do the same approach that I do on like when people are fighting, like two companies trying to merge together or something like that, or a buyout or something like that, or in a negotiations. And I spend the money. I find out who's on the board of directors. I do it like different than most people. Like I find out who's going to be sitting at the table, right? And then first thing I do is I eliminate the lawyers. And people go, no, we'd have to have our lawyer in. That's our legal counsel. I said, no, you don't. They're paid on a retainer. They're paid to prolong everything, right? Their incentive is to if this goes months, I'm on a retainer. I get paid every time this goes out. So I said, they can finalize everything. I said, we're taking out, they have no business being in there. You can finalize everything, but this is the way I walk. I said, I take the lawyers out. You're paid on a retainer. You're no value for me, right? You're paid to extend it and complain and go back and forth with paper. And guess what? If I keep them on for 2 more years, then I got a retainer going the whole time. So I eliminate the lawyers first thing. Second, so I have a different approach to it. Then I find out. So Stoyan, if you're on there, Nicola's on that board, you know what I mean? She's sitting around that table and say there's four people on each side, four on this side, four on that side. I fly out to every single person and have dinner with them or lunch and get to know them and find out what their concerns are. There's something to be said about just having a relationship, picking up the plane ticket. Is it easy? No. Guess what? If it was all easy, everybody would do it. Having a relationship with that person. When I go into a boardroom, I bet every single person. I know if they have a dog, a cat, you know what I mean? if they run every morning, if they work out, if they this, who their spouse is, you know what I mean? And I already know what their problems are and what their concerns are and how many people haven't built a relationship up. They're in their table and they don't understand the person. They're arguing and they think they're going to win. No one wins a fight. So I come in as a kind of a reconciler. I've had, I sat down with every single person, guarantee it. No one else has done that. Right. But it's a different way. It's because the relationship comes first because they still got two things got to happen. Number one, they got to trust you. Right. And still they got to like you. Once you sit down, cut bread with someone or something like that, and have a glass of wine or something like that, and get to know them, like people are still humans. We're emotional people. I just listen. And once I understand what their side is and their side, and I've met with them, I'm not the enemy, right? I just listen. It sounds like you want this, this, and this. It sounds like you with this. And I said, we'll collaborate, and I'm sure we can put a deal together. I don't make it difficult. I go back to the three things that are important to everybody, right? And a lot of people, well, how did you do that deal? They were fighting. Well, most people won't pick up a flight every time and go visit the people, right? They're not going to spend the time to do it, right? But it's for me, it's crucial on all stuff in my business. If I'm going to deal with the customer, boom, I'm on a plane, I'll go visit and make sure that we're a fit, right? Understand them. I want to know everything about them. It's kind of like the old book. It's better to be interested than interesting, right? But I do business different, right?
Has there been a customer that wanted to hire you, but you found it's not the right match, and you just
Yeah,
rejected and
it's not
said,
a
you know,
fit.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's okay too, but I give them an upfront contract too. I tell people what I'm all about, my priorities are right off the bat. And I said, so I'll get the thermostat, I'll dip this thermostat in them right off the bat. And I go, hey, I got three rules. So I said, I don't deviate from these things before we step forward. And I said, right, number one, integrity. I said, if anybody lies to me in any process, I said, I'm gone. I said, I don't deal with liars, right? Because if they lied to you before, guess what they're going to do again, right? So honesty and integrity is number one, right? It's kind of like why would you have good relationships? Because people trust you. Number two, if you want money over relationships, I said relationships are paramount. I said the money will come if we do the right things on the relationship, but there's a lot of greed out there, so people want money first, and they're rather to throw the relationship out the thing as long as they make money. And I said, don't relationships are always our priority. And I said, no, number three, inclusivity. Make sure everybody wins. Because guess what? You got to win, Stoyan. Bob's got to win. Guess what? Everybody listening's got to win. Back to our trifecta, right? Everybody works in two, win-win. We work in threes. I said, those three things got to happen. Then I asked the customer, it might be a client, or just be coming on. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are we allowed? Right? I get a pretty good indication because I'll tell them, here's my values. And if we don't align, that's okay. I'm out of here. But I give it to them right up front.
I love it, man. Boundaries, boundaries. I want to wrap up the episode with a couple of questions about productivity. I mean, this podcast is called Productivity Mastery, after all, and it's more about your personal productivity sort of like approach. How do you get the most out of a? You're still quite active, just doing many things, traveling, meeting clients. How do you make sure that your priorities is where your time goes?
Well, it's pretty easy to prioritize for me. I prioritize. Is that what you're asking? How do I prioritize all the different stuff I'm doing during the day? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's
how do you? Hmm.
and I set that up a long time ago. I got three priorities all the time in life. Everybody knows them. I go number one's my health. So I program in my day my workout. Right, my health's number one. If I can't do anything without my health, so I energize myself every day with a workout. Right, when's my bike? When's my swim? When's my weight workout? When's my steam and my cold shower and then bike home, right? So I prioritize my health because actually, if I'm not healthy, I'm actually a burden on my family, right? So because I can't do anything, so I prioritize my health number one. Get out. I love my workout every day. I look forward to it. And number two, family and friends. I call it F and F, family and friends. If they got it, they need something, I'm there for them. I got their back, right? And so my family and friends come second. So whatever happens down the thing, number one's everybody knows. Like my kids would come in, if they come in and stay with us for a while with their kids, Dad, what time's workout today? They already know what's happening, right? Hey, can I go with you or whatever, right? They already know what's happening. It's like ritual. And then F and F, I call it family and friends. They come. They're my priority. Obviously, I had the same spouse for, we've been together. We met in 86, so it'll be next year 40 years. And then the next one is my business. So if you hit, boom, as long as I've done my my workout in the time I did, when my family and friends are taken care of, number two, number three, then I take my business, right? Pretty
Do you
simple.
have any do you have any kind of like more unconventional routines, like you wake up in the morning, you need to have your coffee before workout, or you journal, or we had, for example, the former president of Starbucks, he was in the podcast. He has a very interesting, every morning he's reading his values and his purpose, and like, do you have any kind of routines on a daily basis?
Yeah, the only routine I think would be the workout, obviously. Yeah, I'm a coffee drinker. I have a couple cups of that to start my day, but that's for sure. Um, but the rituals, I would say, wake up in the morning and start with a PMA, like positive mental attitude. I think I'm what I'm grateful for. Kind of giggle and said like that and start my day, right? Depending on what I got, right? But I live uh, I live by myself, so I love this. I love that acreage out in Vancouver Island. So I got very quiet, got a couple acres in the middle of a dead end road. It's quiet. I love it. And even my wife and I have been together for 40 years. She lives in a different city, right? And she lives in Calgary and she flies here on the weekends. So it's kind of like a date, a date weekend we get. And we enjoy our time together, biking, whatever, we're doing that. She's a great cook and we can giggle and we still laugh. Never a bad thing to giggle together after you've been together for 40 years and talk about next travel. She books all the travel because we travel quite extensively and also talk, she said quite bluntly to me, she goes, she's the boss, right? I married a judge. How many arguments did we talk about? How many am I going to win, right? Like she comes in and says, I said, I got two things before I die. And I said, what's that? And she's kind of like asking her. And she goes, I want to travel and see more countries. I travel quite a bit, so it's not a big deal. But wherever she wants to go, we go. But we usually end up, she wants to see her grandkids all over the place too. So we jump on a plane and go see the grandkids, go play with them, right?
My,
Pretty
my,
simple. Life is
my
good, right?
final, you might have answered a little bit my final question, but let's see. My final question to wrap up this episode is, what is something that you want to do that you haven't tried yet?
Something I wanted to do.
You want to do,
Yeah.
you want to do in the future, but you haven't tried, you haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I've tried quite a few different things from Olympic wrestling to my wife will she'll scream at me, "What are you doing now?" Like then I went to pro football, then I went to coaching, then I went to tried a bodybuilding contest. Then I won marathons. Then I did triathlons. Then I did an Ironman and then adventure racing. And, I've tried so many different things. And I think I'm quite content right now because there's another side to that. I think the biggest thing is me to stay healthy as long as I can because I'm coming up to operation number, not too many people know this, but I'm coming up to operation number 17. So I've had all 99% of it is orthopedic stuff where I just wore my body right out, right? So if I can stay away from the hospital, that's probably my number one goal all the time is health, right? But no medications, no nothing. I'm a pretty healthy guy still, resting heart rate in the high 40s for an old guy like me. And I think the biggest thing I want to try is enjoy my life, where a lot of people and get excited about life. It's simplicity back to me. I always like, it's kind of like the old rule of thumb. You know what I mean? It's always nice to have good hobbies. And I always think of hobbies like, one that gets you fit, one that keeps you creative, and one that makes you money. You know what I mean? And they're like little hobbies that keep me going all the time. So I always do add new hobbies into things like, okay, let's try this, let's try that. But yet at 60 some years of age, it's still simplicity.
Bob, thank you so much. Finally, if you can tell the audience where could they find you if they need your help with speaking, consulting, how can they get in touch, and just remind us again about the name of your book.
Yeah, the book, it's on, just got launched. I think we got it in number 6 right now, and 3 months into it for in North America for bestsellers for coaching business. And that should be that's the best place. It's on Amazon. But for the book, speaking engagement, it's bobmolle.com. Bob Molle spelled obviously Bob, and Molle spelled Molle. And for speaking, and but most people want to join the community and get comfortable being uncomfortable. If you just Google GCBU or get comfortable being uncomfortable, the website's there on .com, and get comfortable being uncomfortable.com. You can join the community and people all help each other out on that. How does that sound?
Exceptional. Bob, that was incredible, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to being with us, to share with our audience. Everybody, if you enjoy this episode, make sure to get in touch with Bob. Make sure to get a copy of the book. Follow him on LinkedIn. Get in touch if you have an event and you're looking for somebody to come and to pump up the morning, to motivate everybody with practical ideas, with amazing stories. I mean, this is the guy. One of my favorite episodes for quite some time, man. Thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure meeting you, Star, and thank you for the opportunity.
Bob Molle, ladies and gentlemen, the legend, the one and only. Bob, I want to start from the middle, man. I want to start with the Olympic story. There's many individuals that won Olympic medals, but your story is unique. Can you lead us through the story?
That's what your definition of unique. It was kind of a nightmare to start it off with, because I think there's so many things that happen. Obviously, you grew up in Bulgaria, a very good wrestling country. The big thing is qualifying first for the Olympics. I was very fortunate. I was ranked 5th in the world at age 20. I'd come to the World Championships in Kiev and placed in the top 5 at 20s. The nice thing was that I'm already qualified, the weight class and everything. I think it went back in the day, top 14 or 16 people in the world could only qualify for the Olympics, right? And you had to be in that kind of top 16, I think it was, back in the day. So I'd already qualified the weight. Now it's just getting better and see if you can get that. But a whole bunch of things happened, and the domino effect of my life was just kind of thrown upside down in so many different ways. Because once I qualified the weight, I had some pretty good relationships. The guy I went and trained with was the guy I actually lost to in the Olympic final, Bruce Baumgartner, and he was the first Olympic wrestler in the history of wrestling that medaled in 4 Olympics: 84, 88, 92, 96. Never been done in wrestling. He did it 4 Olympic medals in 4 different sessions in the Olympics. And anyways, he pulled me up out of the blue one day and just said, because I had a relationship with him, and he said, "Hey, I got all this money, but really it's I can't use it for clothes or anything like that." He says, "I have to use it for training. I want you to be my training dollar." So he was the one that invited me down there to train with him at Oklahoma State University. And so flew down there, rented me a house, and I kind of mimicked, and I call it R&D, rob and duplicate. I kind of duplicated everything he did, right, in his training. And so I got to learn a ton of stuff before the Olympics, and he was obviously #1 ranked person in the world. But the most important thing, I learned so much from training outside the country, where a lot of people stay in their own country and train. I got to experience. I used to go to the Soviet Union minimum twice a year because it was huge in wrestling back in, still is in Russia. And so I trained all over the world. So I got to compete against all these top-notch people. So I think I was a sponge the whole time. The downside was I got injured my back. They brought a big training person in for me, and he was like 360 pounds, super heavyweight. And after training with him day in, day out on the last couple of weeks, my back eventually got worse. And I was so focused on training, I didn't want to ever give it a rest. And it cost me in the long run, because 21 days before the Olympic final, I was on a surgical table having my back operated on. I had ruptured a disc in my back, just so much pressure on the back. A piece of the disc, and it's called a sequestered disc, had popped out and it was on a nerve. So they had no choice. They had to operate on it. So I think it was 18 days. I think it was 18 days before the Olympic final. I was good thing there because the Olympics was going 3 weeks back then. And I watched the opening ceremonies from the hospital bed. And so I'm in tears, and everybody's going, I'm getting notes and, was faxes and everything. Oh, it's so bad you got injured and too bad you maybe next Olympics you'll make it and stuff like that. And I'm by myself in a bed crying my eyes out
Was
going,
that in Canada? You were in Canada in the
yeah.
hospital.
And back in Canada, got the operation and unfortunately watched it. So I spent just under a week in the hospital and just recovering from the back surgery, right? And then I got everybody kind of eliminated me from their mind, saying, "Yeah, well, he's not going to make it," and we'll have that. So it was kind of took some pressure off me, to tell you the truth. I took it in a way, and then I went up to the university and see if I could start a training again. So I, went to physio. Obviously, I'm there all day trying to go, hey, can I still make it? Right. And I kind of had that in my back of my brain. I was going to make it still. And then I spent a week there. And then I spent a week down at the Olympics in LA. But the weird thing was Canada wasn't even going to pay for me at the time. They said, well, it's impossible to make it back in 2 weeks. And, he's not going to be in wrestling shape. Right. And I just like, I think we'll prove you wrong on this one. And I just got kind of a little better every day. And I had a great couple people that I was surrounded myself with. One of was a mentor of mine. He was like a second father to me. And he came up from the States every day, drove up to Vancouver where I was and you know helped me out of bed the first time. It's all about the team you surround yourself with. I'm just being very good with this story, and I had great people around me, and it's all about the relationships. And he picked me actually out of the bed. It's a sick story but true. First day, like literally 3 hours, and he was that kind of guy who just motivated, come on, we can do it, we're not average. And he was that guy, motivating kind of guy. And then so I go, yeah, I'm not human. I can do anything, right? And so he helps me out of bed. And the first thing I want to do is go to the bathroom, right? And he kind of helps me out of bed. And this is literally like 3 hours after surgery. And he takes me out of bed and he helps me and he goes like this. And I said, you're okay? And I go, yeah, I think I'm fine. And what do you want to do? I want to go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? Take a pee. I took one step. Boom, I didn't even make it. Didn't even get my hands in front of myself. And I hit I hit the cement floor. Boom, and my nose hit,
No.
exploded, and it started bleeding. The nurse comes running in. What happened? I said, oh, we're just going for a walk. He's just a couple hours out of surgery. He can't walk. And he goes, looks at me and goes, Bob, I'll be here tomorrow. Let's try that again. But nurses put me back in the bed every day, walked a little longer, how to eat an elephant kind of thing was, get a little stronger each day. And they walked around there. And next thing after that, kind of went in, when I went to the university, see if I could train. Can I use this? Can I get rid of the pain? And so kind of did a week of that. And then I said, hey, I'm flying down to LA and Canada wouldn't even pay for me. Well, one, they're worried about painkillers and I wouldn't pass the drug test. Two, you're not in any shape or form going to be able to wrestle in the Olympics. So why are we paying for it? So I had to pay my own flight down there. Kind of, belief system is just like your country bailed on you. Everybody bailed on me, but it's something about being persistent, surrounding yourself with good people, a positive light, right? And next thing was I'm standing there, and beautiful thing was in got everything started, performance. So that the super heavyweight match was on the last day of the Olympics. So if the wrestling wouldn't have been in the first week of the Olympics, I would have never made it, right? So all those dominoes had to happen for me to get there, right? Because the super heavyweight final was the last match of the Olympics. You know what I mean? At the end of the night, two guys are going at it, and it's really the closing ceremony is the next day. So all those things had to fall in line for me to get to the Olympics, win my first four matches, get to the final. But the ebb and flow of that was just like every day you don't wake up and you go, okay, am I going to walk? Am I going to do this? What's my pain like? What's this? You know what I mean? And you can't be on painkillers. You got to, a guy coming up, Bob, you can't be on any of these things. You got that. And you're trying to get looser every time because you're tight as a drum after back surgery. And then not only that, but you're wrestling two matches a day to get to the Olympic final. So the ebb and flow of it was just crazy. But at the end of it, you get an Olympic medal. And that's what my main focus was at the time was, walk out with an Olympic medal at 21.
What was it like to step into the match, like the first match, like after the surgery, it's the first Olympic match. Like what was going through your head?
I simplify it. What was going through my head at first, what's your conditioning going to be like? Because you've been off the mat for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? How's your cardio? How's it going to affect you? My left leg, when I had the operation for, because a pinched nerve down my left leg, I didn't have balance in it yet, so it would walk. I had drop foot, so they had to tape up my ankle so I wouldn't lose my balance. You know how crucial balance is in wrestling. And all those little things impact your brain. You want to go, how am I going to fare against the top people in the world? The good thing was that once I got in there, you get obviously a little bit of nerves and stuff like that. But the big thing was I had the ability, once I took somebody down, I knew I could turn them. Like I turned pretty well everybody in the world. I had pretty good, once I got to the ground, I could put most people on their back. So I knew once I got a person down, I was pretty good. So all my matches were pretty successful right till the final. I dominated them like, 10 to, at the end of a 12 point, you're ahead of person on 12 points. They eliminate the match. They stop the match. So, a little bit of nerves at first, but you know what the nice thing was, and maybe I take it totally different, Stoyan. I said, you know what? I was ranked, I think, at the time, I think Sports Illustrated had ranked me bronze medal at the time, right? Third, I placed fifth in the world's year before, and they ranked me bronze. Now, there was no pressure on me because they kind of patted me on the back and said, "It's so nice that you could come out and still go to the Olympics." You know what I mean? But pat your back, you're not going to do anything because you're like a cripple, right? So there was no pressure on me. Everybody just like eliminated you from, he's going to show up, but he's not going to do anything. So it was kind of like I had no pressure on me. I felt anyway. So I just go, well, let's see what I can do. Right. So it was just kind of reverse thinking for me. It was just like, no one expects I'm going to do any good. So they think I'm just going to get in there, collect my Canada suit and lose two matches and go home. So it wasn't really any pressure. I didn't feel. I felt it was just a relief and just go, I'll go out and see what I can do.
Did they reimburse you at the end?
I don't remember if they ever did.
I love it. Love it, man. The continuation of the story, you were drafted as a football player the year
Professionally.
after, right?
Yeah, I've been
Yes.
drafted in the States by Tampa Bay, and I was drafted in the Canadian Football League. I was drafted in '84, so at 21, I was drafted professional in Tampa Bay in the States, and the Canadian Football League Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who was the team I played for my whole career. That was in '85. So there was a transition. I was online to finish my degree at the time. So it was a natural progression. Once I'd done wrestling, I'd been to the Pan Am Games, been to the World Championships, been to the Olympics. I kind of did everything I wanted to do in wrestling. And plus, it's not a lucrative sport. You're not making tons of money. While professional football, you're going to make way more money, right? And so once I got drafted, I had already finished my degree too. So on time, it was just time to try my next goal. And I had two goals kind of at the time. One was win Olympic medal, and the other was win a Grey Cup, which was the national championship in football. And I was very fortunate surrounding myself with good people. I had both of those by the time I was 25, right? So, I had a Cinderella kind of, without the back operations and everything else, the kind of a Cinderella career.